Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to another exciting episode of Psychology Talks. And I know this is not our usual time, but this is a different time and a special time because our guest is also very special. Today's topic is kindness, and kindness is not easy, especially when it is not reciprocated, especially when someone is not very kind to us. So these are the situations when kindness when we actually supposed to give kindness, but it is very tough. And that's why I have invited our guest who is an advocate of kindness. She is Robyn Simpson. She is the founder of Choose the Tude, creator of the Kind Community Project, and co-author of Courageous Kind program. She is a dynamic speaker, thought leader, and she's also currently running a campaign uh, about like on the global kindness, where we are spreading love and kindness globally, and a lot of people are joining hands to share kindness. So let's welcome Robyn. Hello, Robyn. Thank you so much for joining. It's such an honor to have you with us today.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. And thank you so much for doing this at a different time to your normal time, because I'm here in Australia and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday. So I'm not sure what time it is over there.
Yeah, it's 9 a.m. I usually do it like almost after 12 hours. So it's like usually my usual time is 8:30 or 9 p.m. So it's 12-hour difference from my usual show. But of course, you are such a special guest today. So
Thank you.
and this time suits you. So definitely, I wanted to have you on this show with us, and especially talk about your work that you've been doing, especially like you're spreading kindness and love, which is much needed in this world today. So just tell us about yourself, that uh, how you got into this, from where you started, and what were the obstacles, the struggles you face. Just tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, thank you. And it is an absolute pleasure to be here. So, okay, there are a few different things that have happened in my career. So, if I talk about courageous kindness and why I'm so keen to spread kindness through the world, if I wind back several decades ago, I do recall a few personal experiences where things I needed to be courageously kind, or there were people that weren't being particularly kind, and I just needed to be able to stand up for myself and back myself. So I have several lived experiences of that, some personal and some workplace oriented, but probably more recently, the one that really kicked off the reason for me building the Kind Community Project is that my daughter was being bullied really severely at the age of 5. And yeah, it was quite
Yeah.
heartbreaking. And I was a little bit, maybe I was a bit naive, but as a mum, I expected bullying to happen at some stage, maybe, always
Mhm.
hoping that it wouldn't. But I really wasn't prepared for it to start so young and so viciously at that age. So what that got me doing was I dug into the research about, what is being done to truly prevent damaging social trends such as bullying, not just here in Australia, but also around the world. And what I found was there's trillions of dollars being spent on treatment for various social diseases,
Mhm.
bullying being one of them, and also suicide prevention, which if we're having to prevent suicide, we already have an issue. So I'm really keen to discover the root causes of bullying. So I dug in and I started researching that. So it took me a few years, but here I am. And, the answer is actually really, really simple. The
Mhm.
answer is kindness. So the antidote to those sorts of damaging social trends, bullying and loneliness and those sorts of things, is kindness. And so the Kind Community Project was created, and it's all about working together with other kind-hearted people that are on the same mission. And that mission is to create a kinder world. And that could be at home, it could be in the workplace, it could be in schools, it could be in our communities. It doesn't matter where, just create a kinder world. And
Mhm.
so the Kind Community Project is all about creating those collaborations.
Yeah, amazing. I know this project is it's really awesome, especially the people you're working with are all my favorites ones, like especially Jen Fraser, David Dibble, they're my all my absolute favorites one. So they're working already in their capacity to actually doing something to bring about the kindness in their way, and I really I'm looking forward to see that how this community project goes and how it brings more kindness to the world. And you have all my support. And one thing also I would like to tell before we move on to our discussion to our viewers today, or whoever is listening either live or watching us as a recording, that our education summit is International Symposium for Education and Innovation. Innovation in Education is actually also planned on 22nd February, and Robyn, Jen, and David will be talking about their KIND project and about that how they are bringing kindness, especially at the education and the workplace. So you will get the chance to listen to them more about their kindness project during that international symposium. If you have not registered, so please register now. So yeah, so that's something that I really we are very much passionate about, to bring kindness, to bring change in this world, actually, because I know that it's not try to actually say that only in education, only in healthcare. I think the entire everywhere we need kindness. So as you were mentioning that you also face some kind of circumstances where you thought that it was difficult to be kind, and then you realized that kindness was the only solution, right? So I think we all face these kind of situations where we find that kindness is the solution, but it's not easy to actually practice kindness. So just tell us about that, how we can practice kindness in those situations.
Oh, that's a good question. And look, it starts with self. So when I talk about kindness, I talk about it in three contexts. One is kindness to yourself, two, kindness to others, and three, kindness to things, which also incorporates the environment and those sorts of things. And I do mean it in that particular order as well, because if we're being kind to ourselves and being true to ourselves and in alignment with our values, then that is so beneficial to us from a mental health point of view, from a physical health point of view, all of that. But it also helps us be able to upstand and be kind during those times when kindness isn't comfortable. So I believe that we need to start with the self, and that is one of the spokes of the model that we use in Courageous Kindness, the program that I'm working on with Jen and David. And they bring other two spokes, which we can talk about later. But basically, I think if we can do the work on ourselves and make sure that we're really, we are being kind to ourselves. And I don't know about you, Ambreen, but I was brought up with a culture where kindness to self was probably the last thing that you do, not the first thing. But I can tell you from personal experience that that's the wrong way around. We need to look after ourselves before we can look after others. And unfortunately, in extreme cases, if we are not being kind to ourselves, then what happens to our brains and our physical bodies is it just builds up this levels and levels and levels of disconnection, and eventually your body can't take it anymore and it turns into disease. So it is super, super important. So I do like to talk about that a bit. But yeah, I think there are so many times that we have to be courageously kind. How can we do that? I think if we can, in the moment, and this takes a bit of practice. So this is why I say you need to start with yourself. In the moment, if you're in a situation where someone is being unkind, if you can just pause for even a millisecond, just stop the brain and go what I call meta. So look at it from an external point of view, refresh, think about something else for a second, and then come back and then assess the situation. Then you are responding instead of reacting. So there's a big difference between reacting and responding. And so reaction is you're not really thinking about it. It's just driven by your instincts and those sorts of things. And sometimes it's, all the things that we've learnt and all the interference that's gone on between, if you've got your values and then you've got what actually comes out are your words, and all the different things in between there, which are beliefs and intentions and value and attitudes. Then sometimes, we might have a value of kindness, but what comes out in our words, so in the top level, may not match, may not actually seem too kind. And that's because there's all this interference in between. And we can unlearn that. So what I love about neuroplasticity, and this is something I've done a bit of research into, but Jen Fraser has done so much more. Her work is incredible. The neuroplasticity is amazing because if we have learnt things through legacy parenting or whatever it is, we can unlearn those things as well. And we can reshape our brains by unlearning them and learning new stuff.
Yeah, I think that's the way to actually react, not react, in fact, respond to the situation. And it's not easy. Yes, that is the one thing that is not easy to actually be kind to those who are unkind, because as you mentioned that, it's just an instinctual behavior. It's our first reaction, when somebody actually tell you that you're not right or you're wrong, or maybe say something bad about us. So it's we feel hurt. We feel, and the moment we feel hurt, we also raise our defenses, right? And then instead of responding to them, we just start reacting and said, oh, because we thought that we need to defend ourselves. So instead of responding to them, we start reacting in a defensive way, which creates more friction and which aggravate the situation. So
just spirals in the wrong direction.
Absolutely. It's just to and fro, and then that's how it is. And like when I was talking to Jen, especially on my podcast, she also explained it that the thing is that those bullies also, they have their kind of brain, because they might have some past traumas which keep them in there. So that's how they actually want to keep you in that kind of loop, to have that kind of perpetual, I would say, loop, that they see that you are being aggressive, you're defensive, and then they feel kind of they drive pleasure out of it. So it's somehow we need to break that loop. So I think that's how we can just do something in that way. So just tell us a bit more about it. That especially when you were actually giving your introduction, you just said that your daughter was being bullied, right? And at the age of 5 years, which is actually too young, and it can cause a lot of troubles, especially like you have been aware of all these, but a lot of parents, a lot of kids are not even aware. And those who are not aware, actually these kind of bullying leaves a permanent scar on their actually mind. So just tell us a bit about that incident and how you dealt with that.
Well, it was happening. So at the time I was working in corporate land. And so my daughter was in before school care. At school, she was in what they call prep over here, the first year of primary school, and then after school care as well. And so she was in amongst, and she was there with the girls that were bullying her in all of those different environments. And so she just couldn't get away from it. And she's quite she's a very empathetic child. She's very lovely and sweet and quite quiet. Of course, I'm biased. I'm her mother. But she is a kind-hearted girl. And she just couldn't understand how other children could be so nasty. And so we actually, one night I was sitting with her, she'd gone from being a really happy, bubbly little spirit who wanted to go to school to every night before bed she was in tears because she didn't want to go to school. She didn't want to put herself in that situation. So we were sitting there one night and I was talking to her about it, and I just, for whatever reason, I come up with poems in my head. I don't know why, but that's what I do.
Yeah.
And so I created a bit of a poem and a character with Dana. And so that character is called Boo, B-U-U, be uniquely you.
Yeah.
And Boo at the time, well, we call Boo the Tude dude, and I actually wasn't expecting to talk too much about Boo, so I don't have a picture of him here, but Boo's a cute little guy. He's all about teaching people about choosing their attitudes and taking personal control and responsibility of the way they feel. And the reason that I was teaching my daughter this is, and I think this is just as important for adults, doesn't matter how old you are, is that we, at the end of the day, things can happen externally for us, but it's how we choose to look at those and how we choose to respond to those that we have control over. And so I was teaching a 5-year-old pretty much adult concepts in a really in a way that a 5-year-old could understand it, and that was using the character Boo. But we use so Boo then expanded into a range of social and emotional learning tools, and we use Boo to teach people the pattern interrupt, which is from the neuro-linguistic planning programming area of study. And it's very, very simple. It's as quick and easy as anything, but I highly recommend people try it. And it's basically if you're not feeling good, so you do need to be self-aware, you need to understand what's going on. Once you are aware of how you're feeling, if you're not feeling good, then immediately notice that. And that's very key, because most of us go through life without noticing these sorts of things. Notice it and then go, okay, what's the opposite? And immediately flip to the opposite. And then think of a time where, let's say you're feeling sad and you want to feel happy. It's a very basic one, but think of a time that you were really happy, and then think about everything to do with that time so that you're building it up. And what that's doing is interrupting the negative thought pattern and changing it to a positive one, and then building it stronger and stronger. And this is the basic principle of, and I'm really dumbing it down, but the basic principle of neuroplasticity.
Yeah. I mean, that's especially like teaching young kids like this. It's very difficult also, and I think that's how you get to know that there's something wrong with her going on, and that's how you just spotted that this needs to be dealt with care or something. So I think that is one thing. But as I always say, that everything happens for a reason, because it gave you a cause to start this movement. I think it was something, it was meant to happen. So I always take things like this, because when we learn from these events, when we take action, I think that is the only way we can break the pattern, we can break that cycle. Otherwise, we keep stuck in that cycle and just keep repeating the same mistakes, same old things again and again. So, yeah. So,
and sorry, you touched on something before that it's sometimes not easy, and the way that we make it easier is to practice, keep repeating it, keep doing it, and that will build up the neural pathways in the brain, so that eventually it actually becomes a natural part of the way that you respond.
Yeah. So as excuse me. So you were talking like especially about the bullying part, and it's very, I would say, difficult to actually deal with bullies, because again, they try to evoke certain emotion, which actually cause more triggers to you, right? Or which are not correct in the situation, and it can harm other person. So how to tackle in that situation, especially when someone is trying to bully you, or it could be at the workplace, it could be at the personal relationship, or at any kind of relationship, people can bully us. So how to deal with that?
Again, I would use the pattern interrupt, but in a different way. So there are lots of different ways to do this. But one example would be, so for example, my daughter, she's just started high school, and literally two weeks ago, they started high school, and she's gone to a school where she doesn't know anyone. So, you can imagine 12 and 13-year-olds all sort of walking around the school trying to stake their claim to who they are and where they're going to sit in the social hierarchy. And there was a particular girl who wasn't that kind. shall we say.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
And anyway, my daughter came home that day and she said to me, Mum, this is what happened. And, I just want to be able to respond without being weak about it. And I said, okay, well, maybe what you could do is next time someone says something to you that isn't kind, what you can do is simply respond with a smile on your face and go, that's interesting. So there is nothing they can do to respond to that, because then their response is their response, and they're responsible for that. And I did go into that with my daughter and said, look, you can't be responsible for someone else's response or reaction. You can only be responsible for your own. So choose something that's not going to aggravate the situation, but it is also going to stop it. And partly responding like that is the reason I call that a pattern interrupt, is because it's actually interrupting the pattern in the other person's brain, because it will surprise them. They won't be prepared for an answer like that. It's super simple, and it's not unkind. In fact, it's kind to both of you, because you don't want the bully to continue being a bully, because that's damaging their brain, but you don't want them to bully you either. So you're actually being kind to yourself and the bully at that point in time. So something super simple. And I have actually used that as an adult in the workplace. And seriously, it's just a matter of being able to not allow that fight, flight, freeze, or the defensiveness come up, and just interrupt that in yourself in the moment and go, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
There's
That's true. But in certain cases, which I have actually noticed, that I've had quite a bit of experience of toxic interactions and friendship, or some kind of relationship. So in some cases, these kind of bullies, or they want to dominate, right? And especially sometimes, what I have noticed also, that sometimes that when you're being kind, they take it as your weakness, and they start dominating you. It's sometimes they think that, okay, that means that they are in a they are in the dominant position, and they are actually kind of dominating you. So how to actually break that kind of their thinking? Because once they are keep on, especially you can say that a boss, or maybe a family member who always try to dominate you, you can say that yes, you can be kind to them, but sometimes it doesn't always work. So what to do in that kind of situation?
Okay, so sometimes being kind doesn't mean being nice. Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think we need to clarify that point, because even in the situation with my daughter, she wasn't necessarily being nice. She wasn't being nasty, but she was just interrupting the pattern. When you've got an alpha type personality that is wanting to dominate, one of the things that you can do, and this is not easy, but it is, again, it takes practice and it takes courage, is to empathize with them. So Jen Fraser talks about this a bit with the bully brain side of things, and bullies have broken brains. Basically, they've got damaged brains. So if you can take a moment to empathize with that, then you understand that you're not dealing with a healthy person. Okay, so and that would then require a different kind of response. But assertiveness can also be a form of kindness. So to stop someone in their tracks and stand up for yourself. So upstanding is being assertive and stopping someone in their tracks and saying, no, sorry, that's not acceptable. And then the other way that you can deal with that is remove yourself. Okay. So, I mean, it's different if it's a situation where there's a riot or something like that going on. That's totally different. But riots aren't necessarily a bullying situation. A bullying situation is something that keeps repeating. So, I mean, there are really, really tricky situations. but it's a matter of, and this is why I keep coming back to, it's about you being really, really clear on who you are, what your values are, and what you're willing to put up with and what you're not. So your negotiables and your non-negotiables. And it's taken me decades to learn and practice this stuff to be able to do it. And I still get into situations sometimes where I just go, oh, that's not comfortable. What is the kindest response in this situation? And sometimes that kind response is about being kind to yourself.
Yes. I think that's very, very, I mean, you just gave a very amazing response that yes, it's knowing who you are. And then I think it also comes with, like, when you know who you are, you know that where are your boundaries, and you don't let those bullies or anyone cross that boundaries. There is I would say a very thin line between respect and standing up for your own self. And it's not like you can actually tell someone that they are not supposed to be disrespecting to yourself, right? In a very kind way. It's not something that you have to be loud, you have to be disrespectful. You can be respectful, you can just say it in a very respectable manner. And for the kids, that especially if I tell my kids as well, because bullying is everywhere. And sometimes like when I was speaking to Jen, I think Jen is really amazing person. I think we should have actually involve her in the discussion. But it's something that we need to also sometimes involve. Oh, sorry, what I was saying, that there's sometimes that bullying come from elders, especially in case of children. And excuse me. So that is something that kids need to be aware of, that bullies can be not only kids but the elders as well. And that's when, like, it's the job of the parent nowadays, that they need to train their kids, that they need to be aware that who is the bully. Is it just the kids, or is it some elder? It could be anyone. And in that case, I think when kids know them, they can actually tell us that what's going on. Because my kids also face some bullying, but not from the kids, it's from the elders. And that is one thing that what really surprised me. And when, because I was teaching my kids that that you need to be aware of it, that how it can be done. And sometimes we need to ignore, sometimes as a parent we need to step into this, like that something is not going on. And as you rightly said, that sometimes we have to remove ourselves from the situation, because that is the only way to protect our sanity, protect our mental health. So I think that's very, very important. Yeah.
Right. And I think you've touched on something really interesting there, in terms of, and the reason that Jen Fraser, David Dibble, and I have come together to do the Courageous Kindness program is because workplaces are full of adults. Adults are as notorious at bullying as little people, as children. And really, if we're going to break the cycle, we as adults need to be the role model. So for us, we all feel, and look, we've all experienced it in different ways in our personal and professional lives. So we come at it from a very different angle. And it's about bringing three different parts of the system together to transform a culture. And if we can do that in many companies, whether it's healthcare or education, those are our two big ones, especially education, because that's then affecting the children. So there's a bit of a systemic effect. But if we can do that in those two primary industries, then what we're doing really is we're dealing with individual people within those organizations who then go out to home and to their communities. And, so if they learn it at work and really live it, then it's going to flow on through to those other environments as well. And that's why the education market is of particular interest to us, as is the healthcare market.
Yeah. And like education industry is really close to my heart is just because I was actually not very keen to it, but it's somehow like my son who actually forced me to it, who's written the book and who's just doing all these things. I never thought that, this could be the thing, because, like when my son was started telling me that, he doesn't like his school or something, I used to dismiss that. Okay, I think it's that everybody likes to talk about this, and it's like every kid's nag about this school. But then when I actually listened to him, when he actually also tried to convince me from the different researches, and what he did was, and then I realized that, yes, I think that's the biggest problem. And then we see that how, and then I think it's just as in the beginning you said that we need to take a pause. Instead of reacting, we need to respond. It's not just that, when we see that every situation is just like that, okay, it is the normal thing. You will always react to them like you're on an instinctual basis. But when you just take a pause and see that what's happening, then you find out that, okay, I think there is something that needs to be dealt with care or something. So that's what exactly happened with me when I actually started looking at the education system. And then I started to then I see that there is a lot of problems. Initially, I used to think that it has to come from the top-down approach, but then I think it's not gonna happen. And then so that's why I like the David Dibble's approach also, that we need to actually I think maybe from the bottom up approach, because we need to educate our kids, the individual people at the organizations. Only then we can actually bring about the change. And I think, as you are already advocating, is like the kindness is the solution, because when we bring in the kindness, I think that is the only antidote of all the bullying and all these harshness in the world. So now we are just talking about the kindness. Tell us a bit about your kindness campaign, which is already going on, and I'm really honored to be part of it.
No, thank you, and thank you very much for your support of this. So basically, it's called Heart Hands for Kindness, and it's a hashtag Heart Hands for Kindness. Yes, well, we might be able to do this. Can we do it?
I think it's maybe we are just
with the wrong way around.
Yeah, somehow.
I've tried that with a few people, and it gets kind of but basically, that's what you just saw. Then part of it is, a little bit of that pattern interrupt. It's about connecting with other people, using your hand to make a heart, or you can do it on your own as well, or you can do it in a whole group if you want to. We've done whole, Zoom calls with people doing it. But the idea behind it is that the world does need more kindness. I mean, we just need to look at the news, and 90+% of it is negative. And that's what we're feeding our brains. That's what's building our cultures. So it's no wonder that the trends such as bullying and loneliness and suicide are spiraling out of control. It's because we're feeding our minds that kind of toxic content. So we just wanted to do something. There are so many amazing people out there doing amazing things, and if we all come together and create heart hands and flood the feeds with the positive messages, then that's got to change the narrative. Even if it's just for a minute, even if it's just for a day, it doesn't matter. But something is better than nothing, and we need to start. And also, we're wanting to raise awareness of some, people that are really wanting to change the world and make it a kinder place. And if we can collaborate and come together and do that, not just in this campaign, one of the other organizers, I've created the Heart Hands for Kindness campaign, and I was introduced by Kevin Smith to, he mentioned that Jacqueline Way, who I know from way back, she also does a campaign called All for Love, but it uses the heart hands kind of thing. So we went, okay, well, if we're both doing it and it's pretty much around the same time, why don't we just do it together? So we've actually brought both of the campaigns together, and that is symbolically a way of us saying, we're role modeling what we want other people to do. Come together to collaborate for kindness, and it's we can all do this. No one owns kindness, but we can all choose it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's a wonderful campaign. And yeah, you mentioned the Jacqueline Way. She is doing amazing work with 365 Give. And I remember that her campaign last year was also something of that sort. Like, if we do one good thing, like, or if we teach our kids to do one good thing in a day, so that's how we can do like 365. So I really love her concept, and she is literally amazing. So I'm
Yeah.
so glad that you guys are actually collaborating, and you're collaborating with all the nice people. So I'm so glad that you're
And
doing great
actually
work.
with you and Valerie as well. And do you know,
Oh,
I've got to do a little shout out to Valerie because she was the one that introduced me to Jennifer and David. And
oh,
she could see, we were having a chat, and she understood what I was trying to do, and she said, you need to talk to these two people. And it's like, okay. So,
yeah,
that's collaboration. That's amazing. So, and then with you and your summits and symposiums, we're collaborating on those too. So I just
yeah.
love working with people that are interested in making the world a kinder place.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I love to work with those people who are on the same mission, who are on the same wavelength, to actually help people, and not driven by the egos, because sometimes people do not want to collaborate. And just as you said, that we need to choose. Like yesterday, Kevin Smith just posted a comment, and I really love that. It's like we are not competing, we are completing each other. So that's something that I really love. That, like, that it's like, if we come together, we are not in a competition, but we can help each other to grow together. We can help each other to actually make this world a better place, and that's what all our mission is. And I'm so glad to be actually surrounded with the people like you and all those other people who are doing the great, amazing work to make this world a better place. So I know we can go on and on, because I know, of course, I love talking to you, and you are actually doing a lot of great work with a lot of good people. So we can talk on, but our time is limited. So before we actually end the show, tell us one advice that, what would you give our one piece of advice to our audience to be kind in those moments when they feel that it's tough to practice kindness?
When it's tough to practice kindness, I think probably the one thing to do is to just stop, take a breath, and decide what is the kind thing to do for me and others right now.
Yeah,
So just stop and think, and then reset,
yeah,
and make a choice. Like, that's about making a conscious choice to be kind.
yeah. I think that's very amazing advice. That it's not only kind to others, but you said that you're kind to ourselves also. You need to judge that, what is the best response, and that's why it is important to take a pause. If you just respond or react, excuse me, it will be just instinctual behavior.
Yeah.
So, anyways, what is the best way to reach out to you? If people want to reach out to you, what is the best medium?
Probably on LinkedIn. So I
Okay,
don't know
yeah,
if you add things on
yeah.
LinkedIn. And choosethetude.com
Oh,
is my
okay.
website. So
Hmm.
choose the Tude, Tude being short for attitude.
Okay.
And so that's where you'll find everything, including the Kind Community Project. But LinkedIn is probably my mainstay, as well as being in the Kind Community Project every day.
Yeah, that's great. And for all those who also wants to know more about the Kindness Project, and to want to learn more about their work, like especially with Jen and David, Courageous Kind Community, please also register to our international symposium. So you also get to know that how other people are doing or bringing innovation in the education system. So please register before we run out of seats. So this is the link that is you see in the scrolling, but also I've shared it in the comments. So anyways, thank you so much, Robyn, for joining us today. It was a wonderful conversation, and we touched upon some of the very important topic, I think, which world needs to know at this time, because there's a lot of unkindness, a lot of bullying happening, and we need to educate people that how to deal with all these things. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, and thanks to all those who joined us, and
Thank
sharing
you,
their
Jen.
comments, either from if they're listening to us or watching us live, or watching us in a recording. Thank you so much.